Welcome back to the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Karnes. This week on the podcast, a dream interview for me. Lou Mongello is a podcast host that I've been listening to since 2008. He is a speaker, author, Disney expert, and Hall of Fame podcast host of the WDW radio show. And we have a great conversation about how you can add a little bit of Disney to your business. We talk about what Disney does well, both in customer experience and in paying attention to the details, and how you can add a little bit of that to your team and your business. Really fun conversation. We sprinkle in some Disney stuff throughout and at the end. So whether you're a Disney fan or you want to know how you can make your business go above and beyond just like Disney does, this is an incredible interview with my new friend, Lou Mongello. I wrote a book called Master Your First Job. It is the remarkable path from first day to first promotion. I'd love to give you a free copy of this book. It's the book that every employer wishes every young employee had, and the book that every young employee needs. I'd love to give you a free copy. If you go to masteryourfirstjob.com/free, that's masteryourfirstjob.com/free, you can get a free e-copy of my best-selling book, Master Your First Job. Let's dive into my interview and conversation with my new friend, Lou Mongello. It is an honor to have Lou Mongello, speaker, author, Disney expert, Hall of Fame recently, podcast host of the WDW radio show, which I've been listening to since 2008. Thank you so much for being here. This really is an honor and a dream interview for me.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you listening for so long as well.
Oh, it's a joy. It helps me. You know, I live in Atlanta, so 6.5 on a good day hours from the parks, and helps me just be there and be present. You bring the magic to my iPhone or to my car, to the AirPods.
And that's always been the hope, man, is helping people connect to this place that means so much to us, whether you're planning for a trip or you just can't get here. I want to try and bring a little bit of that, the things that, and I like talking about the things that just make us happy about going to this place too.
Yeah. A lot of emotion tied to the Disney parks for me growing up. And I know a lot of people that way. And now that I have kids, it's really cool, the impact that's had and the impact your show has had, which you've been doing since 2005. Is that how long you've been doing WDW radio?
I started podcasting literally just a few months after. It was so early on in podcasting that I had to put the word radio in my title so people knew that it was a spoken word medium.
Yeah, I mean, that's like very early on in the medium. And this is pre-iPhone. I mean, iPhone came out in 2007, so it was on people's iPods. I remember the podcast app being on an iPod and on iTunes on your computer. What people might not know is that you left an attorney job to move to Florida, pursue a dream, and run a Disney podcast, which again in 2005 probably sounded crazy. And you've been getting to do that for now. I forget when you moved, so you'll have to share that part of your story. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about you, your story, and like how you became a Hall of Fame podcaster.
So the Reader's Digest condensed version. So I'm a trial attorney in New Jersey. I had an IT consulting company on the side, which means I liked helping people. I didn't want to help people. That's why I did plaintiff's attorney work. I wanted to help people. It was very early on in building websites and networking computers. And I was always in the service business. I had this idea to make something once. The idea of a book came to me, and I really, I set out as a personal challenge to write the book I wanted to read. I've always loved Disney since I was a little kid. We drove in the family truckster like the Griswolds to Florida every year. There was no Walt Disney World trivia book out there. So I said, can I write a book and can I get it published? It was really just the only goal, never thinking it would ever turn into anything else from that. Early 2005, that's when the book comes out in early 2004, 2005. I hear about this new technology called podcasting. I literally asked Jeeves, like, what is a podcast? And started podcasting. And I'll tell you, man, it accidentally turned into a business. And then fast forward to around 2008, I was doing this full time, but flying back and forth from New Jersey to Orlando a lot on research trips. And I said, I want to just see if I can really make this thing work. I had no business plan. I had no idea, but I knew I needed to be where what I do is. So I sold my house. I brought money to my closing. I packed up my family truckster and drove my wife and 2 young kids to Florida to take this leap of faith and see if I can turn this thing that I love into something that I do. And, you're right. It did sound crazy, not just to me, but to a lot of people at the
Yeah.
time too. And I'm fortunate that I was able to end up on this side of the crazy fence.
Well, I know now you're passionate about like helping other people do the same and at turning what you love into what you do and like making money off of it, which I think is really cool because you're a testament to it. You've gotten to do that and look at the success story it's been, man. I mean, like it might have sounded crazy in 2008, and now you run, for my count, I don't know if you keep track of this, the largest Disney show out there. And I feel like in the last 10 years, especially, like Disney influencers have become like a big thing and stuff. But I'm like, man, Lou's the OG. He's
You
been
can
doing
say
this
I'm
the
old, Jacob.
longest.
It's okay. Just say, here, the old man in the room, Mongello. It's time. That's why we gave you the Hall of Fame award. It's time for you to move off into the sunset.
No, no, no! Please don't. You got a while to go to. You got to get to at least 1,000. So 1,000 episodes. Well,
Everybody, it's funny because at this stage of the game, we were just talking offline about conferences, and
yeah,
a lot of times when I go, people ask me like, "What's your exit strategy?" Like, exit strategy? I'm going to die in front of the microphone.
that's
You know,
right.
my exit strategy, honestly, is I will do this until this is no longer fun, and
Yeah,
then I'll move on to something else.
yeah.
And I'm very fortunate and grateful that I still love what I do every day.
And I think what's cool from the outside, I've never gotten to go to these events, but the way you connect people too, I think what's going to be really successful in business, especially in this the newest technological revolution of like AI and technology kind of making a big wave again, is going to be genuine human connection. I think that's going to matter and be extremely valuable. And you've gotten to do that with your community too. Can you talk a little bit about this, like the importance of community and how you've connected that to what you do as well?
Yeah, I've said it for years, and I think now, and it's funny, we were talking about momentum. That's going to be sort of like how I'm going to lead off with momentum this year. We're all in the relationship business. I don't care
Yeah,
what business you. When I was an attorney, I was in the relationship business. Where I was doing IT, was in the relationship business. And speaking specifically to what I do now, to what we as content creators, and I think specifically podcasting, I love this medium with all my heart because I think it is the most intimate, personal medium because you are literally and figuratively in somebody's ears. I think you're having a one-on-one
yeah,
conversation and relationship with the listener, right? I wouldn't be here if it wasn't every single person that's ever listened to the show. But podcasting is the heart of what I do. There's a lot of other aspects to my business, but the community is the soul, and
mm,
it is the most important part of what I do. Not from a financial perspective, but just from a business perspective, a relationship perspective.
yeah.
And it doesn't matter, sort of quote unquote, where your community lives, whether it's Facebook, Circle, Mighty Networks, wherever it is, but just the fact that if you have real, meaningful, authentic community, they'll follow you, wherever you go. But it's the key to success in your business.
Absolutely. But before we dive in a little bit further, I did write a book called Master Your First Job. Lou, I'd love to know, what was your first job?
So I had many first jobs. And what I mean by that is I didn't realize it at the time. So my dad was an attorney. My mother ran my uncle was a neurosurgeon. So they had sort of quote unquote traditional jobs, but I didn't realize they always had some sort of gig on the side. Whether they had an antique store, they had a booth in a flea market, they did like Amway, like way back, like in the 70s, 80s. They had an antique store, they had a bagel store. So they had all these different things. And I didn't realize that they were sort of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You know, way back when, if you were a quote unquote entrepreneur, it meant you were a bum, right? It meant you didn't have a job.
Right.
And now,
Didn't
like,
have a job.
being an
Yeah. Yeah.
entrepreneur is like the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
So, what my first job was, it, selling bagels? Was it working in the flea market antique booth? I just remember this. So my parents' friend was the guy who invented Chipwich, like the ice cream sandwiches. So we used to
Really?
have the Chipwich carts in New Jersey. So I worked on a Chipwich cart, summer times and things like that. So I had a lot of quote unquote first jobs doing things that I didn't realize at the time were teaching me about entrepreneurship and, again, the relationship business.
So I have to ask, these are family gigs. Were you getting paid at these jobs?
Listen, I went to college and law school without having to take out any loans. So yes, I was
Hey,
getting paid.
there you
Right? So,
go. Good for you,
no,
man.
like my parents were very generous in doing that. So, and I think I was also, I got to do stuff with my parents, which was great. I got to spend time with them. But I think I also got paid in education and experience, which are things that, you can't necessarily buy.
That's awesome. So you run a Disney podcast, and yeah, even on your site, Disney expert, and I listen to your show almost weekly. if I miss some episodes, then I have to catch up. You've studied Disney for a long time. Something I've always appreciated about Disney is their customer experience. And I talk about brands a lot with my business, and Disney always comes up, and just the way they handle customer experience and pay attention to the details is so above anything else in the space. And because of that, like, Disney's had a really impactful, it's just been really impactful for me, my childhood, my life. Now as a parent, it's impactful. What do you think sets Disney service apart from every other brand, not just in the space, but I think in the world as well?
I agree. I don't think that there is any company, like bar none, that has the same customer loyalty that Disney does. And I think there's a
Yeah.
few, and I talk about this a lot. I do a lot of keynote speaking to corporate clients and events and
Yeah.
conferences and things like that. And I think it doesn't matter what size business you are, whether you are a solopreneur or you are a Fortune 100 company, lessons from Disney you can apply to what you do. And I think there's a few key aspects to it. I think one, and all these, by the way, you can do, they're completely free, right?
Yeah.
Is exceed expectations, right? We know as Disney fans, we were talking before we started recording about going to Disney World and that feeling that it gives us, right? Why?
Hmm.
Because they exceed, we're not going for the attractions. We go because the cast members exceed our expectations. The experience that we have there exceeds our expectations. And I
Right.
think to a certain degree, Jay, it's because there is intentionality behind everything that they do, right? Even in terms of the cast members, right? Calling them cast members. Every cast member, they don't just, quote unquote, they don't just train employees. They give, they set their cast members in a story, and every guest interaction, right? The average guest has about 60 interactions with cast members a day, which is wild. But they're designed with, purpose and empathy and consistency, like across brand. And it's not just about service recovery and fixing problems. It's about anticipating the needs and the wants of guests and creating those moments that guests don't even know like how or where to expect. It's creating those wow moments that I think make every person's experience there feel very personal and oftentimes unforgettable.
Yeah. I mean, two words you said that I love: intentionality, which is one of my favorite words. Just like the purpose drivenness of it. And two,
Nothing
consistency.
happens there by accident. Everything is very well
No.
thought out, right?
Oh, and then consistency, because I worked for a small little chicken joint, Chick-fil-A, and something we talk about a lot is like, what sets Chick-fil-A apart is the consistency across the chain, and that in Seattle, Washington, and Orlando, Florida, you're going to get the same product and the same level of service, which is really hard to do. And so Disney doing that, obviously not just in Orlando, but even just among the parts, I think is really difficult. And in the way they capture too, like, I've always said, if you want to get the family and like the parents who are paying money, go make the kids' day. And I remember as a, goodness, I must have been 9 or 10. I got to captain the boat on the Jungle Cruise,
Wow.
and I was young, too young to realize that it was on a track. I think I realized that
Wait, it is?
after the point, or I'm like really trying to turn it, and I'm like, man, they're really trusting some kids to do this well. I think I realized it when the cast member said he's keeping us right on track, and I was like, okay, like that was a punny joke. But yeah, like the consistency of it, and I think the care that those team members show too is really important. Now, you may have a window on the inside of this. Like, what does Disney do well in training or in hiring to make sure that they're getting the right level of cast member to recognize those moments and like really invest in their ideal customer?
I think it's both, right? I think to a certain degree, and understand what I mean by this, I think you could train anybody to do anything, right? You can train
Yeah,
anybody to
I'm with
do
you.
a job, but you are hiring for personality. You're hiring
Hmm.
for understanding sort of the mission and the values of what, which is, I think, why, Jacob, so many people who are executives in Disney or Imagineers in Disney, they start off scooping ice cream, right? They start off
Yeah,
sweeping Main Street USA because you're being hired for not what you can do, but who you are. And to
that's
that
right.
point, I think, and I've never been a cast member. And to a certain degree, like, I regret because I wish I could have gone through the process, but I don't because I don't think
Same.
I would be here. But the importance of traditions, and look, I think at the end of the day, you are trained to do a job, but most of what you are taught in traditions is not about how to do that job. You're taught about the mission and the values. Everybody at Disney has a single job. That job is 3 words: make people happy. And then you're sort of not taught how to do that, but I think that the key is that cast members are empowered to do that. They're able to make decisions on their own to say, let me do this thing that I know is going to be a moment of service recovery, that moment where we let this kid think he's driving the Jungle Cruise, because that's the story, that's the memory you take away, which is not just for you, but what ends up happening. You've told that story probably 1,000 times. And people go, that's beautiful, man. That's wonderful. We should take our kids to Disney. I say all the time, Disney could get rid of all the marketing department, right? Because we who love Disney and who have those experiences are the greatest evangelists for this company.
I mean, so Year of a Million Dreams was about this. We went, our first trip was 2006. My parents never thought they could afford to take us to Disney. And then Disney offered the free dining plan. And all of a sudden we could go. And we went in September, and in the off season, we had a school break in September. So we started going in 2006. And I think 2007 was Year of a Million Dreams was when that started. And we got to be we had a couple magical moments, and it was one of them was like the cotton candy official cotton candy taster of the day. They gave us free cotton candy and a certificate. It's like, how much did that cost Disney? It cost them pennies on the dollar and a certificate, a piece of paper that they signed. And here I am at 10 years old, my sister's 8, and my mom's in tears because I mean, at the end of the day, we got free cotton candy, but they turned something small into a magical moment in that we were the royal official cotton candy taster of the day. And yeah,
And
they
you're
could
right.
get rid of the Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I say relatively, it cost them. I think Year of a Million Dreams of all the promotions that they've done was the most brilliant
I
because it
think so too.
created those moments that, from a bottom line perspective for them, cost them nothing. But, 20 years later, you're still telling that story.
That's right. 20 years. Now I feel
I know.
old. Okay, so a little bit about me. I like when I was a kid, you have your I want to be a policeman, firefighter, astronaut. By about age 11, I said I want to be a Disney Imagineer, and I knew what that was. And I also said I was specific. I said I knew that there was like a creative side and an engineering side. And I had met an Imagineer named Michael Lingerfeld, and he said that there were like 3 or 4 that did both. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do both. And so I designed rides early on. I still have a Meet the Robinsons attraction that I attempted to show in it.
Up. I love Meet the Robinsons.
I do too. Underrated. And I designed a Meet the Robinsons attraction and attempted to show it to an Imagineer who told me legally he couldn't look at it because if they make a ride like it, they don't want to get sued. And kid Jacob did not understand that. I understand that
lawyers ruin everything. See?
Yeah, lawyers ruin everything. But something I've always appreciated about Disney is go back to intentionality, the attention to detail. I remember walking around Universal in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, somewhere in there, and we were in line for the Hulk, and I noticed an outlet that was white on a green wall. And I looked at my mom and I said, if we were at Disney, that outlet would be green. And in the old Dueling Dragons, it's no longer there. There was like a fire room and an ice room in the queue line. And I said, if we were at Disney, this room would be warm and this room would be cold. And they're both blazing hot because there wasn't AC running. And I'm like, I've just always appreciated that no stone is left unturned. All the details are important to Disney. What's some of your favorite details you found in the parks that may go unnoticed that had purpose in being there?
So I love that, man, because, Michael Eisner said everything speaks, and we experience Disney in all 5 senses in 360 degrees.
That's
and it's
right.
not the things that you notice that you remember. It's things that you're not supposed to that you remember. So
That's right.
you're not necessarily going to go, wow, these flower beds are really beautiful. No, you're going to remember that one piece of trash that's there, if it's
That's
there,
right.
which it's not in Disney. You're not going to notice, oh, all those light bulbs are on. No, you're going to remember the one light bulb that's out, which is why you never see it. And I think that's what part of what distinguishes. And I love the fact that you pick up on it elsewhere because we use Disney as the benchmark and say, this wouldn't happen at Disney. And I'm very much the same way. I've visited other theme parks in the Orlando area, and it's the same thing. Like, this is something that wouldn't happen or would have been fixed overnight. I think Disney does so much that we don't necessarily see or recognize with our conscious mind or eyes. So again, doing things with intentionality, maybe unnoticed, like you said, but very purposeful. Look, the Utilidors. The Utilidors in Magic Kingdom and Walt Disney World is absolutely brilliant. The fact that there is this working city that is taking place technically underground. It's on the first level, which again, you don't realize because the water table is so high in Florida. But this working city where All the things that we don't want to see that would break the magic are happening underneath. And cast members are just popping up. Trash just disappears. The smellitzers, right? The things that you don't know that are there, excuse me, see or recognize are there, that are pumping these scents onto Main Street USA, where it's like 8:30 in the morning, like, why do I want a waffle cone all of a sudden, right? These subconscious things. We all know the musty water smell in Pirates. We remember the orange smells in Horizons. Even as you walk down the street, Main Street, forced perspective, right? How it creates this emotional scale. Like, it's magical and brilliant in its simplicity. And look, even, we talk about the trash, and I don't know why I'm so cognizant of this, maybe because my mom was, but, I go to the Disney parks and I'm like, there's not a speck of trash anywhere. I just came back from Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea, which when your kids get older, you have to go to. And all I kept saying is, look how clean this is. Look how clean this is. Like, you can eat off the ground. And as you watch and you see cast members, leads, managers, security guards, whatever, it's not just custodians, everybody picks up trash. And it goes back to Walt. And I think that coming full circle, talking about the training and hiring for mission and purpose, I think that tells a story of pride and purpose and care.
This is a connection I'll draw between Disney and Chick-fil-A. I love that at Disney, most managers you see will have the claw trash picker upper in their hand. Keeps their hands clean, and they're walking around picking up trash. And those are the leaders, those are the managers. Something the Cathy family, who founded Chick-fil-A, has always said is like, when any corporate employee, operator, whatever, is walking through a parking lot of a restaurant, if you don't have 3 pieces of trash in your hand when you walk in, like, what are you doing? And so even corporate employees will visit a restaurant, and your job is to pick up trash on the way in, because it's a parking lot. It's hard for team members to keep that clean 24/7. But if everyone takes ownership of that, because again, when you pull into a parking lot, it's your first impression of that brand. So I know a lot of our listeners are small business owners, and maybe you're like, look, we can't do forced perspective or the smell stuff that Disney has. We don't have that kind of budget, but we do want to deliver unforgettable customer experience, and we do want to pay attention to the details. What are some practical ways that those small business owners can bring that level of care that Disney has to their business?
I think Chick-fil-A is a great example of that, because it's, again, I love Chick-fil-A. This is a body by Chick-fil-A, but
There you go.
I go because I love the way Chick-fil-A makes me feel, not just because of the feeling of really good chicken in my belly, but when I pull up, the fact that every person that works there is kind and polite, and it's not performative. Like, it's who they are, and you feel welcome there. When you go to Disney, right, and you go to check into a resort, what's the first thing they say? Welcome home. It's a little thing that all of a sudden, like, it changes the dynamic. Why doesn't every hotel say that when you check in? Why don't they say welcome home? When you step on a Disney Cruise Line ship, what's the first interaction that you have that happens? You're stopped before you enter the atrium, and they introduce you, right? You're made to feel like a VIP. Again, those things cost absolutely nothing. So I think whatever size business you own, you have to think about that as well and design your customer journey intentionally. Look at all of those touch points, from your website to your email response to your packaging to your parking lot to your lobby to your on hold, like whatever it is, like, and ask yourself, how can we make this feel better, more personal, more magical, and then empower your team to do that, right? Give them permission to go above and beyond. Do you know what a difference a handwritten note or some sort of little surprise freebie or like nothing thing can go a long way? And I think that if you create those small, consistent wow moments of delight, even if it doesn't have to even be a physical thing, like you have a customer interaction, you have a new client, it's like, send them a thank you video, like send them a little follow-up, something that has that human touch that Disney is able to do consistently, daily, across the board and at scale.
And I think you nailed it there at the end, is like, it can't be a one-time thing. It's got to be something that's a system that's repeatable, that, and again, your team's empowered to do. Because I think when your team has to continually ask for permission, that it creates a block, right? It creates this friction point of, okay, well, now this person has to be here to approve it, and maybe the moment's gone. Versus, I mean, if you said, hey, no matter what, maybe it is a food business, and you're like, you tell every team member, hey, you can give away one meal today, just on the front end. And I know there's accountability and stuff you have to have, but hey, you're empowered. You can give away one meal today and make someone's day. That
Not to
probably
your
costs you
friends, right?
nothing. Right.
Not to those people mooching. Hey, can I tell you a very quick story that I
Yeah,
think really
please.
illustrates that? So I'm at Crystal Palace, a buffet on Main Street, USA, and there was a family of four: mom, dad, two young kids, and the young girl had gotten food all over her dress. And so the mom stands up and she's got the daughter who's just covered in whatever, saying, "Listen, you guys stay here. I'm gonna go walk down Main Street, get on the monorail to get to the bus." To go back to the resort to change so and then we'll come back and meet you later. I watched a cast member, not a lead, walk over and say, Miss so and so, come with me. And I found out later on after talking to them that the cast member took them down Main Street, USA, walked into the Emporium, said, pick out a new little dress for your daughter, go into the changing room, get changed, come out. And she said, listen, go back, enjoy your breakfast, enjoy the rest of your day. What that did, that may cost them $10 merchandise. The cast member didn't have to go and ask for permission, didn't have to get an approval, get a slip, make the person pay for it. That moment that cost them $10 is not just going to create a family of Disney fans for life, but she's telling that story to everybody. I tell that story to everybody. And that's the thing that's like, that's it. That's the Disney difference.
We walked in. So we've said our favorite Disney day was I got engaged June 29th, 2018. So coming up. And the day after, we were going to go to Hollywood Studios. It was the day that Toy Story Land opened. And I was like, that's going to be so busy. We had out of town friends that were coming to Disney with us. Let's just go to Magic Kingdom, have a great day. We walked into City Hall we just wanted a celebrating button because my wife wanted people to ask about her ring, and she deserves that. So we walk in, and there are several like female cast members that were just like, oh my gosh, let me see your ring. They then gave us snack voucher. We had a party of 12 snack vouchers for everyone in our party, 6 fast passes, like the good ones, the anytime, any ride, just walk on. You have 6 uses for everybody in our party. We got a couple more free stuff that day, but again, it's like special day to us. They made it extra special. We told everyone that story, and I can't tell you how many friends that we've been like have not been Disney people. We're like, trust us, just go try it once, who are now Disney people. And again, free marketing, because they did something small for me and my family, and we want to tell everybody we know about it and say that it's the best vacation for you, especially if you have kids, but even if you don't.
The value and the ROI of that story is immeasurable, right?
That's right. So something I love about Disney and always have is that it's not, and to me, it's what separates it from other theme parks or even I don't know what you call the other ones, just amusement parks. There you go. But is storytelling, and that Disney is the best storytelling company in the world. When I talk about brands, I even talking about like Steve Jobs before he went back to Apple, spent a decade with the storytellers at Pixar, went back to Apple, and their marketing strategy was dramatically different. And they went from a 7-page ad in the New York Times showing the tech specs of the Lisa to the ad campaign when they come back was 2 words: think different. And of course, Apple has been, I mean, it's the biggest company in the world now post Steve Jobs comeback. And that storytelling can have such a major role for you in your business. And obviously, Disney at its heart is a storytelling company, right? Like this started with Walt telling stories with his little cartoon characters, and he brought a lot of fairy tales to life. I think storytelling, even in the parks, has such a huge role in creating this magic. And like you said, the feeling you get when you walk in the park and the feelings you get when you're a member. How do you think small businesses can use story to elevate their brand?
I think that's something that is so overlooked. I think it's so often not taught to businesses because, like, well, we sell glasses, we sell widgets, we sell chip
Right.
widgets. There's no story here.
Yeah.
But I think that is because, again, it goes back to the way you want to make people feel. Apple does not sell. They don't sell iPhones. They don't sell computers. They sell a result. They sell. If
That's
you
right.
this, they don't tell you what the thing does anymore, right? They never really did when they sort of made that switch. They show you how your life is going to change, how your business is going to change, how it's going to make you feel. Nobody cares about the tech that's inside this thing or the details
Nope.
of what it does. And I think that brands have to think about that as well. And I think that's the differentiator between two companies that might be offering the same things, but it is the story behind it. Look, even as we've been talking, the importance of, you can start a podcast about, you know, growing a business, being a solopreneur, whatever it is, but without your story, without your journey and how you can apply that to what other people are doing, there's a disconnect there. And I think so many brands often have that. Look, I had a coaching client years ago. They were an auto repair shop, and they made a shift in their business that humanized and personalized their brand and the relationships that they were having with their customers, and their business, not that success is necessarily always measured in dollars and cents, but they've got like month long waiting lists to get into their, like, cannot fix
Yeah.
cars fast enough. And people will drive 50, 60 miles to go there because of that's their different. They all fix cars the same way to a certain degree, right? But it's the way they share their stories, the way they share their customer journey and experience that is their differentiator.
I love it. And again, like you hit on something with story that I think is important. A really good story it introduces a problem and then solves it. And I think the best stories introduce it very quickly. I mean, you just had a recent episode about Indiana Jones. Like very quickly, you see in that movie that he's having to go through booby traps, and it's like, okay, now I'm interested to see how he solves this. How's the hero going to beat this? And if you're not figuring out what problem you solve as a business, you're missing out on the key storytelling principle of, like you said, people don't buy the iPhone because it's 256 gigs. When they made the iPod, he said it's 10,000 songs in your pocket. That's a lot different than this is 6 gigs. No one cares about that. 10,000 songs in your pocket. All of a sudden, oh my goodness, I could have unlimited music on this thing. That solves a problem for me. And I think if companies can figure that out and do that well and figure out what problem you solve, and then add this other stuff we've talked about of like the level of personal service you can add and to go above and beyond, exceed expectations, I think it can make a really big impact on your business. Something you've done really well, and I think I'm testament to this, is you've built a very loyal community of both listeners, event attenders, audience around WDW radio. What's the connection between world-class service and customer loyalty?
From my perspective, and I appreciate that, because I talked about the community sort of being the heart and the soul, and I don't want to take credit for it because, and the reason why the community in sort of has gone through sort of many iterations of what they were used to be called the box people, because I used to do live video. They were literally in the box. They were in this computer that I was walking around with.
That's funny.
But I called the clubhouse because I really do feel that I'm a facilitator, right? I built the clubhouse. I built this place and the space for people to come together. And I want to facilitate those relationships. Walt said it takes people to make a dream a reality. And people just want to belong, right? They want to feel like they belong to something. Look, as somebody who didn't have a lot of, friends and stuff in high school and things like that, I know the feeling of not belonging and then feeling like you belong to something. That's all people want, right? It's why we wear, t-shirts from Disney World. It's why we wear jerseys from our favorite football team, because we want to look across and go, oh, you and I, we like the same thing. We're sort of making that connection. I think that's what businesses need to do, is facilitate that sense of community, which might make no sense to certain, like, we don't care about community. We just want people in and out, right? We want throughput. We want turnover. We want to just make sales. But if you do that, if you build community, if you build loyalty, if you build relationships, then to a certain degree, and understand what I mean by this, it doesn't matter what you sell or what your next offer is, because they just want to be part of it, right? They want to experience it with other people. They want to help support you because you have that relationship with them. And I think that you can sort of squash and stretch and scale this to however small or large your business is.
I love that. And again, like that community aspect is going one level deeper and making that genuine human connection that I think businesses that do that well are going to thrive in the next decade, no matter what tech is doing. As with everything, people are going to get tired of the new trendy thing. And I don't think AI is going away by any means, but I think what's going to be valuable as everyone adds it to their daily life is going to be genuine human connection. And I'm currently reading The Anxious Generation. Have you read that book? Very powerful book. I don't think it's like a scare book, but they showed us a lot of stats around the great rewiring, is what the author calls it, between 2010 and 2015. And this first Gen Z, like the first generation of Gen Z, basically going through puberty around the time of the internet and the iPhone and putting it in your pocket, and like what it's done to the mental state of kids who are now adults. And again, as I read that, he just talks about basically that this has added a barrier between humans connecting with one another, and that's what we need to thrive. And so I think businesses that do that well are going to be ultra successful for the next decade.
I'll tell you
I
a very
do want
quick
to
story. I was just on a
please.
flight. I was just on a flight about a month or so ago, and a flight attendant came over. I don't know. She was giving me, a drink or something, and I was not like in first class. I was, economy. And she came over and she puts down a piece of paper turned over on my tray table, and I turned over and it was a handwritten note. Like, I looked at it very closely. I'm like, this just must be a photocopy. And
Yeah,
they just give it.
yeah,
It was a handwritten note thanking me for flying Delta. That note alone, I like Delta to begin with, but
yep, me too.
that alone is going to make me go, you know what? I'll pay a little bit more to
That's
fly
right.
Delta than another airline because of that simple little gesture.
That's right. I do want to ask you a few Disney questions before we get out of here, because again, I'm like, I've been a fan for such a long time, so I got to ask you a few Disney questions, both about Disney and your show. Do you have a favorite episode or series of episodes of WDW Radio?
Those are hard because, every episode is your favorite. Every
Yeah,
guest
yeah.
is. And I could easily point to, there are certain guests and certain things that resonate because of what it meant to me personally.
Well, that's my next question. So if you have a few, go ahead and list them about favorite guest.
So I do love the interview shows that I get to do. One, because it's a privilege and honor to have anybody want to come on the show. But for me to have the opportunity to capture somebody's story in their own voice, we know the power of the spoken word medium, and just, hearing somebody and the emotion that comes out. And look, I've been very fortunate, and this is, again, not about me, but I've been fortunate to interview, Disney legends across the board, and to hear them, there's a little like quiver in their voice as they talk about Walt or they get emotional. I'm like, this is podcast gold, right? Because
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't convey that in the written word.
You
So
can't fake it.
you can't fake it. And I love being able to tell stories, not just of the Disney legends that we all know, but the people behind the scenes and the folks that you don't know that are the true magic makers, and helping get some of their stories shared as well. If you're asking me like favorite interviews, I mean, I do have some for, personal reasons, and Richard Sherman was one of them.
Yeah.
Getting to know
So
and,
cool.
and become friends with Richard Sherman, whose music continues to mean so much to me and my family. And pretend this is not about me, Jay. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm name dropping, but a
No,
lot of
I
people that
mean,
I
I
interviewed,
asked you.
like my mom and dad wouldn't necessarily know like they might not know who Richard Sherman is, but I was able to interview Dame Julie Andrews years ago. And that was the one that my mom was like,
Everybody knows who that is.
right. And to be able to talk to Mary Poppins, who, I grew up loving, was an absolute, an absolute joy, that and a privilege. So at the end, they told me I had a very little bit of time, and we did our interview. And at the end, I was like, Miss Andrews, Dame Julie, Miss Poppins, like, you meant so much to me. And now I have young kids, and I'm teaching them, like, I'm showing them Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, Lou. And I'm like, oh my God, Mary Poppins just said my name. Like,
Uh-huh.
it's just like, that was a little kid dream come true. So again, the opportunities that this show and this community and every person that's ever listened has afforded me, and to be able to share that is an absolute gift.
I have one more to add. This is a story you've told that is one of my favorite of your guests. Before I add it, I'll say Richard Sherman. Even if you don't know who he is, I'll say my daughter doesn't know who he is. She's 3, but she loves It's a Small World. And I've learned to play it on the piano, and she knows that tune. She knows that song. She asked to listen to Small World. And I'm like, you don't know who Richard Sherman is, but he wrote that. You know what I mean? Like, this is his music. It's in the parks forever, hopefully. And he's had such a huge impact on the Disney brand, because music's one of the best ways to connect with humans. And he connected to us with music. Another one of my favorite guests, cool story you have, Kevin Feige, a name that probably a lot of people would know now, but when you met him, didn't know who he was post. You want to tell a quick story about Marvel leader Kevin Feige?
Embarrassing as it is.
Yeah.
So I'll try and make this as short as possible. So D23, the Disney fan convention that happens every other year. This was 2009. I've always had a booth at D23. A lot of times I'll be around, walking around, going live, and
Yeah.
somebody in my booth is like, "Hey, you got to come back here. You have to like stay here because some guy keeps coming over. He wants to say hi to you and wants to meet you." So I'm in the booth, and she goes, "Oh, that's him over there." And in the corner of my booth, we had like an end cap booth.
Yeah.
Is a dude in jeans, like a Reese's peanut butter cup T-shirt, like sneakers and a hat, and I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever. And he's like, "Oh, hey, listen, I've been listening to the show for a long time. Like, blah blah blah." I wrote so, exchanging the pleasantries.
Yep.
I was like, "Wow, thanks so much." I was like, "What brings you out to D23?" He's like, "I'm a huge fan. I was going to come anyway because actually my company just got acquired by Disney." I was like, "That's really cool, man. Like, what company is it?" He's like, "Marvel." I was like, "Wow, that's awesome." I was like, "What do you do?" Now, mind you, it's 2009. We don't
Yep.
really like see these people in like,
Right.
they're not online. We're not seeing them the same way. So, before you make fun of me, we don't see who Kevin Feige is. We don't
Yeah.
hear that name a lot. I said, "So what do you do?" And he's like, "Oh," he's like, like Iron Man and the Hulk." I was like, "Yeah," because I made them. I was like, "Huh?" He says, "Yeah, I'm Kevin Feige. I'm the president of Marvel Studios. So now,
Yep.
I was a theater kid. I have to completely act." I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Like pretending that I
Yep.
know who you are. And I'm like, "Kevin Feige." I was like, "Oh my God, that's great. I'm so sorry, blah, blah." And, we chat some more. I said, "Listen, I would love to have you on the show and like talk about this." I was like, "Do you have a business card?" He's like, "No, I don't." I said, "Well, could you come on the show?" He goes, "The ink is still sort of drying on this, but we'll
Yeah.
see." And so I gave him like books and CDs and all this kind of
Yep.
stuff like that. Right. And he walks away and I'm like, "You idiot." I'm like, "You just totally got duped." So I text my brother, who's a big comic book fan. I said, "What's the name of the president of Marvel Studios?" He's like, "Kevin Feige." I was like, "What does he look like?" He's like, "He's always in like a t-shirt and a hat." And I was like, I Googled, I was like, "Oh my God, it really was Kevin
It
Feige."
really was him.
But we, became friends and we've, chatted over time. And I think one of the greatest stories and personal takeaways I ever got, and I got him to say it on the show because I was like, you need to repeat this while I'm recording. He's like, "Your show got me through the making of Iron Man." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, on the
Look at
way from
that.
my house to the studio, I would listen to your show in the morning. And it would just sort of like de-stress me. And I wouldn't think about things for a while because it was such, this huge undertaking." And I was like, that right there may be like the single greatest thing that anybody's ever said to me. So
Without WDW radio, would the MCU have the success that it's had? People are asking. People are asking. Favorite Disney attraction, past or present?
gosh, I'm a nostalgic, I'm a sentimental. I love the classics like Haunted Mansion, but there are some remarkable attractions around. I'm now in the indie mode, so I could say, Indiana Jones is incredible. Journey to the Center of the Earth in Tokyo Disney Sea, the Voyage of Sinbad in Tokyo Disney Sea. Some of the overseas attractions, parks have some amazing attractions.
All right, Lou, you have a trivia question at the end of every one of your episodes of WDW Radio. You've also written multiple trivia books. I've got a few trivia questions for you. I'm going to attempt to stump you. You said it would be easy. So I'm a big golf fan. Walt Disney World held the Walt Disney World Golf Classic from 1971 when it opened through 2012, unfortunately. Do you know which golfer has won that tournament the most times?
Was it Jack Nicklaus?
It was Jack Nicklaus. 3. All right, 1 for 1. He won the first 3 tournaments, so 71, 72, 73. And
That's it.
then
I only know that name because of how old I am. So that's
Well, what's funny is that if that's a great guess, and if you were to guess a second time, it probably said Tiger Woods, who won twice, so it's just tied for second most times. So
I think that question's actually in my first book because I think
is it really
Jack Nicklaus helped design like
the Magnolia?
the Magnolia to the Palm course.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that. So you're teaching me stuff. Okay, which sitting U.S. president first recorded their own voice for the Hall of Presidents, and in what year?
It was Clinton, 19 something something.
93. Okay, those two are easy. We're gonna get a little
Oh,
bit
I
more
thought those
tough
were
for
the
the
hard
last
ones.
two.
So I was so proud of myself.
So I know you're a big fan of the country and culture of Japan. Which gift from Emperor Hirohito is displayed at Epcot's Japan Pavilion? And when was it originally presented? Where was it
It
originally
was the
held?
stone lantern that
Yes,
originally was, I want to say 73, and it was over at the Polynesian first.
it was at the Polynesian. So it was actually at the dedication of Magic Kingdom in 71 and then was at the Polynesian. Okay. Here's my one that I'm like, if I'm going to get my one, it's got to be this one. Maybe. I'm a big coffee guy. I'm a coffee snob. I like specialty coffee. So honestly, I bring my own coffee kit when I go to Disney. But Disney has a partnership with Joffrey's, which has all the coffee in Disney. When did this partnership begin, and where was the first Joffrey's location at a Disney park?
So I'm really bad with years, but I'll say, was it 2025 now? I'll say but somewhere between 2010, 2015, I'm guessing. I'm totally guessing. Am I even in the right ballpark?
No. So it
Wow.
was way before I thought. So it was 1995 at
Wow.
Typhoon Lagoon. And I think that was the only location for like several years.
I never would have gotten that, and I will remember that stat forever. That's very
There
cool.
you go. Yeah, and they're out of Tampa, so a local business Disney worked with there in Florida, which I thought was really cool. All right,
Oh,
I got you on one. That was I'm like, all right. The
That's
Disney
a good one.
trivia
That's
author.
a great question.
Tried to connect with my love for coffee as well. I had to dig to find that. I hope that's accurate. Lou, if there's one takeaway from our episode that a small business owner, a corporate business leader listening to this would take away, what would it be?
Map your customer journey. Walk the walk. Literally walk through your process like you are a first-time customer or a potential customer. Where are things confusing, easy, slow, or cold? How do you sort of deepen that connection and relationship? Like, ask yourself, not just is everything okay, but how do you sort of exceed expectations, create those surprise wins and wow moments, and fix if something is wrong, fix it fast, fix it visibly, right? Don't sweep things under the rug. Show your customers, clients, community that you are listening, you are responding, you are acting to continue to try and improve, over and over again. And really, as you start to grow and scale, think about hiring, think about culture, right? Disney is all about culture. Hire for attitude and alignment, not just skills. You can train anybody on the tools. And I think, as a leader, don't just think about efficiency and efficacy and productivity. As a leader, you need to create that culture. It is not just sort of a checklist that people go down. People need to be seen and heard and valued. So They don't just do the work, but they deliver experience as well.
I love it. Lou, I have one of your books here. The other one's on my shelf. The Disney Interviews. You have 2 books I know that are on your website. A ton more resources as well. Where can people connect with you, work with you? I'll have WDW Radio linked in the episode description as well. But where can people connect or work with you?
So everything I do on the Disney side of things is at wdwradio.com. I am at Lou Mongello on all social, primarily Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And over at loumongello.com is everything I do on the business side of things, which is coaching, consulting, courses, and I have a momentum series of events to help other people turn what they love into what they do, as well as everything I do on the speaking side as well.
I love it. Lou, this has been truly an honor to get you on my podcast after listening to your podcast for so long. Thank you so much for the interview today.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for watching and listening to this episode of the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. Take care.